Hey everybody, you're watching Cadroll Hunter. In today's episode, we're going to look at some international money that my Globetrotting friends Kent and Dianna sent me, plus some paper money I picked up from my bank. They always set this aside. They give me a call if they get some interesting things. And there's some older stuff here. We're going to take a look and see if there's anything rare or valuable, or just something that I can add to my collection. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, this is James and you're watching my channel Cadroll Hunter, and you know if you watch the channel that I love looking through old paper money. I always ask my bank if they have any old paper money, and if they do, they'll sell it to me. You can try asking at your own bank. They're not supposed to, or many banks won't do it. They send them back and these bills typically get destroyed. So I'm always looking for old bills, anything interesting. There might be some gems in there. I would hate to see them get destroyed. We'll use our Charlton Standard Catalog of Canadian government paper money to look through and see if we've got anything interesting here. I also have friends who are Globetrotters, and they regularly send me money from countries, paper money from countries that they visit through the year. And they did that again this year in 2025. They were all over the world, and they sent me some things from countries they've never sent me before. So we'll get into the Canadian money in a bit. We're going to first look at this stuff here. First up, we've got 20 kroner from Sweden, and this features the famed author Astrid Lindgren. So you might know Astrid Lindgren from Pippi Longstocking, and I think that is the image we've got here on the front of the bill. One of my favorite books growing up was The Brothers Lionheart, and she also wrote that. On the back here, we've got a nice outdoor scene of Sweden and the map of Sweden here. And we'll just take a look and see. Yeah, we can see a watermark there of Astrid Lindgren. So very cool banknote. That is awesome. If you're curious, 20 Swedish kroner is the equivalent of about 3 Canadian dollars. So that's sort of what that would be worth on their travel. So thank you so much for sending me that. That's awesome. We got another one here that is really, really cool. Check this out. This is Sir Edmund Hillary on a $5 New Zealand note. And we've got a penguin on the front there. If we look through let's see the reflective. There's a penguin. There's a map of New Zealand. We've got some elements there in that little window. So this is a polymer note like we have in Canada now. On the back, we've got some flowers and, of course, this big Hoyo penguin, which is really, really cool. That is awesome. And this New Zealand $5 note, I think it's probably worth about $4 Canadian. That's what the equivalent would be. So this isn't like sending me a quarter. That's actually pretty significant. So that's pretty cool. And then we've got a couple of old Hungarian bills. We've got 1,000 forint and 2,000 forint. So this one here features Matthias Kirali, who was the king of Hungary in the late 1400s. So you know you've got an old country with lots of history when you've got people on your bills who were alive 500, 600, 700 years ago. It's just crazy. There is another watermark. You can see the denomination as well as the image of the king. And we've got a fountain there that is pretty cool. So that is 1,000 forint, and that's the equivalent of about $4.40 Canadian. So this would be double that. This 2,000 forint. And this features Bethlen Gabor, who is a Hungarian military leader in the late 1600s. So they're reaching far back into history for these notes. And we'll see the same watermark there. So this bill is from 2020. This last one here is 2023. So some Hungarian currency that is still circulating here. That is awesome. I love adding international bills to my collection. So thank you so much to Kent and Dianna for sending these bills. I should also mention this is Mount Cook here. This is a New Zealand mountain, but Sir Edmund Hillary, of course, was famous for scaling Mount Everest and I think many other peaks in the world. So he is truly a New Zealand, I guess, superstar, if you will. And have a look at something I just noticed on this 1,000 forint bill here. Look at the serial number. It was very close to a radar. 9509056. If that 6 had been a 9, it would be a true radar, a palindrome, reading the same backwards and forwards. And that would have been a really, really cool find. That's always valuable. But this is still a very cool bill that I don't or didn't have in my collection. So thanks again to Kent and Dianna for thinking of me and sending me some treats along with my Christmas card. Thank you so much. Enjoy your travels. Next, we'll have a look at the banknotes I got from my bank. I just asked, do you have any paper money? And if they have it, they'll sell it to me, which is awesome. We got some from the multicolor series. So these were issued from 1969 to 1975, depending on the denomination. So you can see this is a 1972 here. It's a 74. And the $1 bills were issued in 1973. So the $1 bills, I've got them here from the nicest at the front here to pretty worn and circulated at the back. In this condition, they're pretty much all going to just be worth face value, but there are some ones to look out for. So the earliest of these 1973 $1 bills had a 2-letter prefix, and they would have had a Lawson buoy signature combination. These Crow buoy ones were later bills, and they moved to a 3-letter prefix. Now, almost all of these 3-letter prefix bills are common. So they have to be in really, really crisp condition to be worth anything more than face value. So that's one thing to note. The one exception would be anything that has an X in the third position. Those are replacement notes. So earlier ones would have had an asterisk at the front of the serial number. Later, they moved to an X. So it's a little harder to spot, but those are the replacement notes, and they certainly have a premium. I'm always using my Charlton catalog here to see what signature combinations and prefix letters are more or less common. We can see that anything with a 3-letter prefix is just worth $1 until it's in uncirculated condition, and a gem uncirculated, a pretty much perfect note, is going to be $4. We don't have any of those here, but this one here might be considered uncirculated. I think I saw there might have been a counting mark on it, like a little crease from a teller counting it with their finger. That one's in good condition. This one here, though, has a bit of a crease on the bill. You can kind of see it along here. The corners are pretty good, though. I tend to keep them if they're this nice anyhow. And I'd have to be a little bit more discerning for the rest. This one has some big creases and perhaps some stains. I might hold on to these and give them to other collectors. And then these guys, of course, are pretty circulated. The only other thing that you want to do, of course, is check out the serial numbers to see if you've got things like sequential bills, radar notes, solid numbers, low numbers, high numbers. I saw we had one here that looked like it was a high number. Yeah, right here. 9563578. So if you imagine that BCN would have started at 0000001, this is a 10 million number series. This is after 9.5 million of the bills had already been printed. Some people like those high serial numbers and the low serial numbers and collect them. So that's pretty cool. There's really nothing of significant value in there except the really nice looking bills that we want to keep. We'll take a look next at the $2 1974 series. You'll see both of these have a 2-letter prefix, BB and UM. I'll look that one up in the Charlton catalog. This note with the BB prefix is going to be the nicer of the two, but if you look closely, it's got bends and folds and creases. You know, it is certainly not in perfect condition. When we look in here, anything with 2 letters, there's 500 million of them printed, right? So they're not uncommon at all. In an uncirculated condition, there'll be 10, AU 7, in an EF, maybe 4. Anything lower than that, it's just worth face value. That particular bill, maybe it's around the EF range. I don't even know, maybe not even there. So it might have a slight premium over face value. I just paid $2 for it. So we're just kind of rolling the dice that there might be something nice in there. And that's a little bit of a hint. If the bank says, I've got some paper money, just buy it. You can look at it, take it home, go through it, look through your Charlton catalog, see if you've got great serial numbers. You don't have to hold up the line at the bank looking through everything. And if there isn't anything that you like or want to keep, you can just deposit it back again. They will accept it and they will ship it off. So that is the good thing about that. The UM prefix here, this is UM8928074, is listed separately as a series. It's got 9 million printed in that run, but you'll see that the values really only increase if it's in an uncirculated condition. In an EF, it's still worth $5, but unfortunately that bill is in worse condition. It is not really great. It's probably just worth face value. Now, the $5 bill was refreshed in 1979. The design was very, very similar, but a few changes happened. One was that the serial numbers were moved to a space on the back. So this design was condensed somewhat. Got a picture over here. They removed the Bank of Canada element and put the serial numbers on the back and removed them from the front. And some of the elements are just a little bit different. Like the numbers are a little bit different from the older and the newer ones. But for the most part, they look the same. But this is the older of the two series with Bowie Razminsky. We're going to look it up. It's got a CC prefix. And here is the entry for the 1972 series. We'd have to look and see that basically everything is common in the Bowie Razminsky with the two letters. And so, but in an EF, it's 15. A VF, it's $8. So it's worth more than face value, even in this condition. It's got some issues on the corner and creases, but this is probably worth keeping. It's got, I mean, it's been folded, but it's not worth only face value. There's a slight little premium, but I want to look and see if this might upgrade the $5 bill in my collection anyhow. So that's a good little pickup. And it's always worth looking through to see if you can upgrade. Some people collect different signature combinations. Some people collect different prefixes. Depends on how crazy you want to get. Some people will just want one bill of one type and that's it. I try to collect all of the signature combinations. And of course, if there are any rare serial numbers, I will keep those as well. Now we ended up with 3 of these $2 bills from the 1986 series. They are in uncirculated condition. You can see there's a bit of a curve on them the way they were stored, but they're in really nice condition. And all 3 of them are sequential. They're EGS 1, 2, and 3. So that is very, very cool. Now these are really plentiful. It's common. So even in an uncirculated condition, the book value of these is only $3. If we look for anything from EGS and EGT, $3 in an uncirculated condition. So nothing too special, but they're sequential uncirculated bills, and I always hold on to those because they have additional value for sure. Some collectors will pay more for sequential bills. It tends to prove that they're uncirculated. They've never been out and about. Just depends on how they've been stored as to whether or not they've got damage on the corners or if they're folded a little bit like this or bent a little bit like that. But I'm going to put these in holders to preserve them. So we got one $1 bill in the 1954 series. This is a Lawson Bowie. This is one of the later ones that was made. You can see this was printed by the British American Banknote Company. The Canadian Banknote Company and British American Banknote Company printed these bills. So 2 different companies were doing it, which is interesting. This is common. This is one of the latest bills, as I mentioned. It is a Lawson Bowie signature combination. These bills were introduced in 1954, but they were printed right up until they were replaced by the 1973 $1 bills we looked at. So for almost 20 years, these were being printed. These might have been one of the very last ones that were done. So this is actually from the 70s, not from the 50s. But still, these are hard to come by. This one here is most certainly worth more than face value. In an EF, these bills go for about $4, and an AU about $7. So anytime I can get a really nice looking 1954 bill, that is great. But I keep all of the 1954 bills because, well, these are just really, really hard to come by. Of course, I should mention that the earliest of the 1954 series bills were known as the Devil's Face bills because the Queen's hair had the details that looked like the face of a devil. And this one here is the modified series. So later on, they softened the curls just to the right of her ear so that it didn't look like the face of a devil. It had a very pointy nose. That's what people thought, but it was really just a very faithful reproduction of a portrait. That's the way her hair looked when the picture was taken. So the artist wasn't doing anything nefarious. That's what some people thought, but really it was just a faithful reproduction of that photo in the engraving. Anyway, we don't have that here, but they're always valuable, and particularly more so in the lower denominations like the $1 and $2 bills because they were heavily circulated. So people weren't setting them aside, and that's just the way they were. And they were like that for several years. But we didn't get one of those, but you always want to look. If you can find one in any condition, they're quite valuable. And last up, we got a couple of $1 bills in 1967's Confederation Centennial series. And these are unique and interesting in Canadian banknote history because they initially produced them with no serial number. They just had 1867, 1967. So that is unique and interesting in Canadian banknote history. We just didn't do that at any other point in time. Collectors, of course, are always looking for ways to collect these bills. And because there aren't different prefixes or anything, a lot of collectors are looking at the faceplate numbers, which is right by my thumb. You can't see it, it's so small. And the backplate numbers, which on this bill is tiny little printing right there. So there are different combinations that you can get. So lots of different ways that people collect, but that's one way in the 1967. These are all pretty common. This one's not in great condition. It's not in terrible condition, but you can see it's got some creases and folds on the sides there, and the corners are a little roughed up. Last up, we have the second group, and this one here has an actual traditional serial number, 5568846. So a little bit later on, these were added. This is a B.D. Razminsky. They're all B.D. Razminsky in the 1967 series. And let's just take a peek here. Yeah, we've got the old Parliament buildings. These were destroyed by a fire. And this is an I over P. And we'll just check the Charlton catalog and see where that sits. Pretty common. But in an F condition, it's actually a $2 bill. This is probably better than an F. This might be a VF or more. So it's worth at least double face value. So it's worth getting these and looking through them. Of course, I have some that are completely uncirculated, and that's what you really want to find. And it's not uncommon when people bring paper money back to the bank. It's not just money that they had from spending. It's money they found somewhere. Sometimes it's money that was set aside. It was put in books. It was parents' money. It was saved when the banknotes changed. And so you can often find them in an uncirculated condition. That's why I always ask for it and look for it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this look at some international banknotes and some older Canadian paper money. I always like to share my finds with you guys and bring you along for the ride if I find something interesting. And every once in a while, we found something interesting and valuable. So it's always worth hunting banknotes to see if you can find something cool. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next time. The sponsors of today's video are Lighthouse Canada and the Charlton Press. Lighthouse Canada is the leading supplier of high-quality numismatic supplies in Canada, and the Charlton Press is the leading publisher of coin and paper money catalogs and price guides for Canadian collectors. Go check out their online stores today and use the exclusive discount code CRH20 for 20% off all your purchases.